Good morning. My name is John Harris Maurer, and I'm the Public Policy Director for Equality Florida, pronouns he, him. Equality Florida is the state's largest civil rights organization dedicated to securing full equality for Florida's LGBTQ community. We're gathered today with advocates from around the state to oppose a dangerous slate of censorship and surveillance legislation. This year, we've seen numerous bills, including the Don't Say Gay bill and the Stop Woke Act, among others, that insert government into our workplaces, into our schools, our doctors' offices, and our most intimate decision-making. These bills censor crucial conversations in our workplaces and our schools. They would criminalize doctors for providing life-saving care. They create new avenues for lawsuits against employers in schools, take away personal control over our own healthcare choices, and even reference putting cameras and microphones in classrooms. Today we'll focus on the Don't Say Gay bill and the Stop Woke Act, two fast-moving bills that are partisan theater for an extremist political base. For months, Governor Ron DeSantis and former President Donald Trump have been jockeying to score political points with a conservative base. To that end, the governor and lawmakers have launched attacks on LGBTQ youth, on honest history, and even on diversity and inclusion trainings in Florida businesses. Governor Ron DeSantis' Florida is the freest state in the country, where you're only free to do as you're told. Let's be clear. If passed, the Don't Say Gay bill will ban discussion of LGBTQ families in our schools. It will intimidate students and teachers who are LGBTQ, and it threatens schools with outrageous lawsuits for acknowledging historical events like Stonewall and the tragedy at Pulse nightclub in our curriculum. Discussing sexual orientation and gender identity is about who we are and who we love. Recognizing us is always valid. The so-called Stop Woke Act is the worst kind of censorship. Legislative leadership and the governor are willing to step on freedom of speech and threaten both companies and our schools with lawsuits just to ensure that discussion of history or important topics like diversity won't make someone uncomfortable. This is outrageous pandering with real-world consequences. Today we'll hear from directly impacted individuals, from lawmakers, and from partners in the fight against this censorship and surveillance slate of bills. Thank you for being here with us today. First, I'd like to invite up Ryan Wilson, the Associate Regional Campaign Director of the Human Rights Campaign, our national partners and the country's largest LGBTQ civil rights organization.
Thank you, John Harris. Hello, my name is Ryan Wilson, and it is my honor to represent the Human Rights Campaign today here in Tallahassee. HRC is America's largest civil rights organization working to achieve equality for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer people. HRC envisions a world where LGBTQ+ people are embraced as full members of society, at home, at work, and in every community. As Associate Regional Campaign Director, I have the honor of representing over 248,000 HRC members and supporters in the state of Florida. These are Florida students, Florida parents, Florida voters, and Florida taxpayers. Today we stand with Equality Florida at the state capitol because extremists in this Florida legislature are pushing forward a slate of discriminatory and harmful bills that will endanger the health and well-being of Floridians, the very people they are here to protect. HRC opposes the Stop Woke Act because these bills are thinly veiled political attempts to attack marginalized communities. Let's be clear, the negative consequences of this so-called Stop Woke Act will ripple across Florida. It will hurt LGBTQ+ people, it will hurt people of color, it will hurt women, and it will hurt those who share many of those identities. It will harm businesses and cast a shadow over Florida's reputation of being open for business and open to all. The Human Rights Campaign also opposes the Don't Say Gay or Trans bill, because if enacted, this harmful legislation will prohibit teachers from talking about LGBTQ+ issues in school and undermine existing protections for LGBTQ+ students. Let me explain the real-world consequences of these censorship bills. Students may not be able to show photos of their family or talk about their family holiday traditions in school. Teachers could be censored and forced to avoid everyday topics and questions from students. The stigma that will come from having topics that teachers must avoid could have significant impact on students' mental health. We must let kids know that it's okay to say gay. It's okay to say trans. These aren't dirty words. These are the identities that we, their family, and their friends hold dear. HRC is also here to oppose HB 5 and stand with Planned Parenthood and the Florida Reproductive Coalition for Floridians for Reproductive Freedom in opposing the abortion ban. So let me close with this. These attacks on LGBTQ plus people, particularly transgender students, are not unique to Florida. These bills are a result of a concerted effort by right-wing organizations that have been battling against LGBTQ plus progress for years. In 2021, 25 states enacted anti-LGBTQ plus bills, 13 of which were anti-transgender, and across 8 states, including Florida. That was the worst year on record for anti-LGBTQ plus legislation, and already Florida is on its way to joining South Dakota in passing anti-LGBTQ legislation this year. We will be sure that these votes and voters in this state are reminded of these harmful votes when elections come up next November. Our families and our communities have rich and dynamic lives and histories. These are our stories, and they deserve to be told in schools and in the workplace. They cannot be erased. We will not be erased. That's why HRC opposes all discriminatory legislation here in Florida. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. And next we'll hear from Todd Delmay, an LGBTQ champion and Florida parent. Todd.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Todd Delmay, and I am the proud parent of Blake Delmay. He's a 5th grader in a Florida public school, and I couldn't be prouder of him. I'd do anything for him. This bill is laid out as a Don't Say Gay bill. It's laid out as a parental rights bill. But I know more about fighting for parental rights and being denied my parental rights more than anyone in this Capitol. You see, 12 years ago when our son was born, it was still illegal to adopt in the state of Florida. Because back in the 1970s, this legislature was told lies and misinformation, and they outlawed and banned gay people from adopting. So when we wanted to adopt our son, my husband, my now husband, had to adopt him as a single parent. I was told to bring some friends and try to blend into the background of the hearing, as if my life didn't matter, as if on the most important day of my son's life, when he should have been becoming a family with both of his parents, I was denied that. 8 years ago, we wanted to fight for the right to be a family. So we joined 5 other same-sex couples to sue for the right to marry in Florida. And we won. Our family is equal to every other family. And 7 years ago, when the judge lifted her stay, we and another couple from the lawsuit were the first to ever marry in Florida. My parental rights are tied up in adoption and in the rights of becoming a family. It is so important that we allow every child and every family to be treated equally. When Blake was in kindergarten, the year we won marriage equality, he, like a lot of other kindergartners, was invited to bring a picture of his family to school. All of the students brought their pictures, and they were able to talk freely and openly about themselves and about their family. You see, when we're safe at home and then we leave and we go out into the world, we go to school, we need to find safe spaces. And our son was able to find a safe space. I was horrified during the Senate hearing to hear that if this bill had been in force and one of my son's classmates had said, "Why does Blake have 2 dads?" the teacher would have been forced to say, "Go home and talk to your parents about that." That isn't right. It would have shamed my son, and it would have made all of the other students think, what's wrong with Blake's family that we can't even discuss it at school? One of the things these sponsors have talked about a lot is that, we never talked about gender identity or sexual orientation when we were in school, and they're right. Didn't happen for me. But I'm here to say is that gay kid that I know they all grew up with, is that living in that silence was very hard. We felt alone, we felt afraid, and wondered if we were the only ones in the world that felt this way. So I implore you, please stop this bill. We can stop another generation from growing up like we did. This bill would enforce and penalize to make sure that every kid lives in silence, and it can't happen. We can stop this legislation, we can stop it now, and we can do right by our kids and our future, and we can allow teachers to teach and kids to be themselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Todd.
Thank you, Todd. And next we'll invite up Kaylee Sandler, a local leader in her GSA.
My name is Kaylee Sandler. I am a student in Leon County, and I am part of my school's student government and the president of the Gay Straight Alliance Club. The Don't Say Gay bill has caused great concern from students all across the state, because this bill will have children believing that having different sexual orientations and different sexual identities is wrong, and to be that you should be shunned or bullied. Primary grade levels are one of the most important developing periods for children, and with our society becoming more diverse and more children having parents who are gay or lesbian, and if they aren't allowed to talk about it at school, the teachers have to say, you can ask your parents, you can't talk about that here. It'll make them feel like there is something wrong with them, and the other students will bully them because they will assume that having LGBTQ parents isn't right. This will increase bullying rates exponentially, and when the bullying rates go up, that is when a child won't be able to learn, they won't be able to develop, and that will make their chance for suicide go up. Furthermore, talking about sexual orientation or identity doesn't encourage students to keep information from their parents. And the discussion of in school doesn't encourage them to hold information from their parents. This bill will encourage students to hold information from their parents. This comes from kids believing that LGBTQ is wrong or there's something wrong with it. And if they start feeling like they are lesbian, gay, bi, trans, or queer, they will feel isolated, and they will believe their parents won't love them or accept them, and so they will end their life. In the United States, over 700,000 students and children are abused, and 3 million don't have parents. Children need to be able to talk to their teachers because they don't always have that perfect, loving parent at home. In this challenging society, children need to be able to go to their teachers for help and advice. They may not be abused or neglected, but they need social skills as well as reading and writing. And if they are barred from that at an early age, it will handicap them from being able to communicate effectively for the rest of their lives. Then the child will be delegitimized and not developed properly. Teachers need to be open to conversations that shouldn't always be relayed back to the parent, unless a child is showing signs of hurting themselves or others in any way. Students must be able to trust their teachers to be able to learn and succeed. If they can't, their funeral could be the next one on the news. Since I'm a member of student government and the president of the Gay Straight Alliance, it is my duty to fight for the students when their equality is threatened, whether that includes race, sex, sexuality, origin, or religion. The Don't Say Gay bill is threatening every student's rights and every student's life in this state of Florida. Stop treading on our rights before it kills all my peers, my friends, and their future. Thank you.
All right, you heard it here, folks. The future is bright. With that, we'd like to invite up Representative Carlos Guillermo Smith.
Thank you, John Harris, and thank you. Round of applause for Kaylee as well. Just amazing, amazing leadership within our schools. Folks, I'm State Representative Carlos Guillermo Smith, and in 2016, I was elected as the first openly LGBTQ Latino in the Florida Legislature. I am proud of that, and the reason we call this the Don't Say Gay bill is because it censors conversations about LGBTQ students, about LGBTQ families, and about LGBTQ history. For me to tell you here publicly today, or in a classroom, that I am gay, 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 and proud, is not a dangerous message, as Governor DeSantis and Republicans in the legislature suggest that it is with this legislation. LGBTQ, gay, and trans Floridians like myself, we are a healthy and normal part of any society and of any school in the state of Florida. We exist, and conversations about us are not dangerous. And saying that they are sends a very dangerous message in and of itself to our most vulnerable youth. Now, folks, this bill is not just about censoring LGBTQ conversations. This bill is so intentionally vague that it will have a chilling effect even on the safe and healthy schools, LGBTQ inclusive programs and policies that provide safe and healthy educational environments for LGBTQ students to help them learn, to help them succeed. And these policies have saved lives, and they're not going away anytime soon. This bill tries to solve a problem that does not exist. And frankly, I think it's disgusting that Republicans are again using LGBTQ kids as pawns to score political points. Am I right about that?
Yeah, you're right about it.
Exactly right, exactly. And what we keep hearing about is supporters of the bill continue to conflate school conversations about the mere existence of LGBTQ people with conversations about sex education. Folks, conversations that simply acknowledge the existence of LGBTQ people, the existence of LGBTQ families like Todd's, they're always age appropriate for any grade. There's nothing wrong with a teacher encouraging a third grader to tell us about their family, tell us what makes their family special, what they like to do when they spend time with one another, and asking the classroom for a response. We should celebrate that, but this bill wants to prohibit these types of conversations and encourage Floridians to turn against one another by encouraging folks to sue the school if they believe a conversation about LGBTQ people is not age appropriate. Folks, I have seen some of these people that show up to school board meetings with their anti-gay and anti-trans agenda. They don't think any conversation about LGBTQ people is age appropriate. And you want them to sue the school? You want them to take resources away from our teachers, from our students, and from our communities? I say no. And I also say gay, 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 gay. And folks, I also want to acknowledge, I represent a community in Central Florida. It's been only 5.5 years since the horrific tragedy at Pulse nightclub, where 49 mostly LGBTQ people of color were murdered. Their descendants, their children, their nieces and nephews and cousins and family members are children in our schools. And conversations about our history and what happened in our community are intrinsically linked to conversations about LGBTQ people. And we will not be silenced about what happened in our own community or about our own history. I also know that we have some Hispanic media here as well, so I want to make sure that we get some Spanish language conversations out there. Nosotros llamamos a estos proyectos de ley No Digas Gay. Lo llamamos No Digas Gay porque censura las conversaciones sobre los estudiantes LGBTQ, las familias y la historia en nuestras escuelas. Los floridanos LGBTQ como yo son una parte normal y saludable de cualquier sociedad o cualquier escuela. Nosotros existimos y las conversaciones sobre nosotros, sobre quiénes somos o cómo parecen nuestras familias, no son peligrosas y no necesitan ser censuradas. Y seguir que las conversaciones son peligrosas, como hizo el gobernador DeSantis, envía un mensaje horrible a nuestros jóvenes más vulnerables que solo necesitan nuestro apoyo. So folks, we are here standing against this bad bill and many others, and we're here to make sure that we are not erased. We will not be erased, and we will continue to send a message of acceptance, positivity, and love to LGBTQ youth. And our message for them is we love them for exactly who they are. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Smith. And next we will hear from Representative Anna Escamani.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, John Harris. I am so honored to be with all of you today. My name is Anna V Escamani. My pronouns are she, her, hers. And I am proud to represent District 47 in the state legislature, which does include the sweet town of Orlando and Pulse nightclub. I am shocked and appalled to even see legislation like this in our body. I actually had the opportunity to see this bill in its first committee stop in the House, not because I'm a committee member of the education silos, but because there was a member who was missing, and I was asked to be the ex officio, and I said, hell yeah, I will be there to defend our LGBTQ plus kids, because I am not just an ally for our community, I am an accomplice, which means I don't just defend and go to pride events and wear my rainbows. I'm going to jail with you if necessary to protect our LGBTQ plus kids, to protect our LGBTQ plus community, because that's how serious these fights are. And I also know that my equality, my justice is tied to yours. None of us are free unless we were all free. And despite Governor DeSantis calling us the freest state in the country, we have to ask, free for who? Free for our women and our girls? Free for our LGBTQ plus people? Free for our people of color? I don't think so. And this legislative session, it is a combination of not just culture wars, but real life consequences for our young people and for our communities of color. Because this isn't just about rhetoric, this is about the impact of policy. And when you actually read the Don't Say Gay bill, as much as supporters want to say it's harmless, it's not a big deal, y'all are overreacting, just read the bill. The bill literally erases sexual orientation and gender identity, not just in primary school ages, but it says or when this is not age appropriate. So we're going to trust Department of Education, who already at the end of last year eliminated their LGBTQ plus anti-bullying curriculum, to dictate to us what is age appropriate. What is going to stop them from saying that ever talking about trans lives, that is never age appropriate? And to conflate this with sex ed is so grossly inaccurate. And folks should remember that Florida not only has a abstinence emphasis with sexual health education, no matter your sexuality, but we also have a system where all curriculum is made available for families to see. So to conflate this with you're teaching about sexual activity to identifying that LGBTQ plus people and kids exist is not only false, but it is grounded in homophobia and transphobia, which is the entire intention of this bill, is to erase people who are different than what the status quo is. And I kid you not, one of the supporters of this bill with these outside homophobic organizations literally said online that it's not called a Don't Say Gay bill, it's called Don't Turn My Boy Into a Girl bill. That is exactly what they think this is. They think that kids are becoming gay or identifying as trans because they go to a school. Guess what? Your kid is already gay. your kid is trans, and you should love them and embrace them. And if you have questions about that, I'm here to help. Let me know. We need to be creating a safe environment for our kids to be themselves, and a safe environment for our parents to understand what it means to be trans.
That's right.
And what it means to be LGBTQ+. The last thing I'll say is how dangerous this bill is to outing kids, which was one of my first reactions when I saw the Department of Education remove the anti-bullying curriculum. Because if we don't address bullying in our schools, we already see high rates of suicide among young people. It is dramatically higher for kids to identify as LGBTQ+. So if you're not addressing this in our schools, you are allowing our kids to be in harm's way. And so what this bill does is take a far overreach into even more dangerous territory by essentially forcing teachers, educators, counselors that if a kid looks like they're in a different mood or they look different than the day before, you're supposed to report that to a parent. And first of all, there could be a lot of reasons why a kid's having a bad day, which it could also involve an abusive parent. So I would also argue that you are endangering kids who might be experiencing some sort of harm in the home to now tell the parent that a teacher detects that. That's going to put a kid in harm's way. But if you are becoming yourself in school and becoming more open in school, building the courage to tell your parents, outing that child not only sets them back dramatically, but in a state that hasn't banned things like conversion therapy, which I'm using air quotes because it's not a real therapy, you are potentially putting kids in danger back into a homophobic, transphobic environment where the parent has no opportunity to even understand where the kid is coming from because the kid can't tell their own story. They're hearing it from the school. And if the school doesn't do that, they're going to get sued. So the dangers of this bill are pronounced in every word. And I'm reminded of growing up in Orange County Public Schools and meeting my first openly gay friend. And I was one of the first people that he told. And so when I hear stories about our GSAs, I just can't help but cry because when I was in school, even just 10 years ago, 15 years ago, GSAs were just starting. And that was the first club that I joined when I was a sophomore in high school. And so the fact that we have to still have these conversations now 15 years later is unbelievable because I thought when I was a kid that we had it bad. And of course, when others were kids, they thought they had it bad. Like, we're supposed to be beyond the point where bigotry enters the classroom. That's what this bill does. So I am proud to stand in opposition to not just the Don't Say Gay bill, but of course to HB 7 and HB 5, which you have on the floor this week. And I really do encourage my colleagues to, instead of creating more problems and more trauma, why don't we support our kids? Let them be kids, let them be ourselves, and let's make sure they have a safe place to sleep at night, food in their belly, a doctor they can go to. There are plenty of issues that our kids need for us to address, like paying for our Medicaid system, that we should be prioritizing in this body, not pursuing a homophobic and transphobic agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Escamani, always an outstanding accomplice for our community. Next, we'll bring up Ebony Crispin, the Legislative Affairs and Community Engagement Director for AIDS Healthcare Foundation, one of our strongest partners.
Hi, everyone. As John Harris mentioned, my name is Ebony Crispin, and I'm here representing AIDS Healthcare Foundation for many different reasons. But I just want to tell a personal story first. I am originally from New York. My husband and I met on eHarmony about 15 years ago, and we got married a few years ago, and then last January we had our first child. And we celebrated his first birthday a few weeks ago, and we were sort of talking about, and as people do when you have children, how do we want to raise our children? What are our values? What does it mean for us to bring a child up in this society? And there are a lot of dialogues you can imagine that one is having. And in your home, there are different conversations that can lead to. And for my husband and I, what that led to is, how do we want to represent both our community and our child, but also your child? we're missing large points here when we think about this bill. There are dog whistles that's happening that we're not paying nearly enough attention to. And so when my husband and I had this conversation, we said we want to be not only an ally to our friends, to our family members, to our loved ones who may not be out yet, may not have the language, the conversation, both children and adults, to be able to say, this is who I am. And my heart breaks for those children that are having to have the conversation in their minds right now about what it means to share that with their parents. But they may be able to trust that teacher who they spend 8 hours a day with. They don't spend that same amount of time with their parents potentially, and that happens before the age of 8. There are children who know who they are, even if they don't have the language, before they are 8 years old. And I want our 1-year-old child, however he shows up, however they show up, whoever she may to be able to say to us, and if they can't, say to a teacher, to a guidance counselor, to a principal, I need to have a conversation with you. And it makes me nervous, anxious, that this bill has the potential to pass and put children and teachers, frankly, in harm's way. I'm representing AIDS Healthcare Foundation because I believe in the mission of not only our organization, what we represent, but Equality Florida, Safe Schools, and the people here that came just like me because we want to be able to say, this is insane. Enough is enough. We talked to legislators yesterday and today about this bill, and there's a lot of people that are nervous, are scared, don't know how to respond to it, don't know how to articulate their fears about the change that is happening in our society. That conversation needs to happen both within these walls, but also in community. But we cannot pass bills that put children in harm's way, that cause things that would harm them beyond repair. AIDS Healthcare Foundation is here today because this is a public health hazard. We are asking for people to do things in their lives that put them at a higher risk. And I'm asking you to call your legislator and tell them to stop this bill. As a mother of a beautiful child, it is enough is enough. We need to evolve past these really horrible, insane, antiquated bills that will change people's lives in a way that we cannot reverse. My name is Ebony Crispin. I represent AIDS Healthcare Foundation, and we must stop this now. Thank you.
Thank you, Ebony.
Thank you, Ebony. And next, we'll hear from Janae Davis-Hines, the founder and president of Social Justice Institute Student Association.
Hello, everyone. I am Janae. I'm a senior at Florida Memorial University in Miami Gardens, and I am here to speak on the behalf of the Florida Student Power Network, as well as the mass of Black and brown students throughout the state of Florida that find the HB 7 bill discomforting. The Individual Freedom Bill, Stop Woke, does not represent the demands of Florida students and parents. In fact, what we see is more constituents are speaking against the bill than they are supporting it. HB 7, as well as HB 1557, Don't Say LGBTQIA, is currently being used to divide us further into political chaos. Representative Avila and Senator Diaz filed HB 7 not because of their own self-interest, but of another interest that is beyond their commitment to their constituents. They are props, nonetheless. ALEC, the American Legislative Exchange Council, proposed this bill. ALEC is the same corporation that has proposed other harmful legislation like the 3 strikes law and mandatory minimums. Do not be fooled by the vagueness of this bill. Sponsors of the bill repeatedly bring up the discomfort and division our history perpetuates. Let's talk about what it means to be born into discomfort. It's discomforting to know that as a Black person, the history of your ancestors is so wicked and incomprehensible that legislators and lobbyists are trying to minimize it for the sake of their own comfort. Not to mention that this bill will limit the opportunity for culturally isolated individuals to gain diversity and training in the workplace. A lack of knowledge and understanding causes division and chaos. Like many other descendants of enslaved people, I was born into an inner city that was once named the most dangerous city in America. Like many of my peers, we have very little knowledge of where our ancestors originated from. This is why HB 7 is a personal attack on the African American community. Our white, Asian, and Latino brothers and sisters should be educated on what that means to be our society. We are not underdogs of our society because we are lazy or never-ending members of victimhood. They are systems and policies that account for the wealth inequality and academic achievement gap in America, and our students deserve to know. We cannot let this bill be passed. The language of this bill is extremely vague. HB 7 has too many gray areas, and this is no accident. They intend to leave the vague interpretation of this bill up to the discretion of race baiters and political props like Representative Avila and Senator Diaz. This bill perpetuates racial, political, and divisive chaos, and we must protect the history of our ancestors and our students. And so I leave this quote for young people. This quote is from Marva Collins, she was a black educator from Chicago. And she said, "I can either be hesitant or be courageous. Light does indeed maroon the hesitant and inspire the brave. This is my life and place, and I will accept the challenge. Join us in telling your legislators to say no to this bill and stop the destruction of Action Act, HB 7. Thank you."
We've seen a tremendous turnout. Just in the last hearing on the Don't Say Gay bill, there were more than 80 folks who showed up to oppose that bill. They spoke incredibly passionately on the record, and it was really disappointing to see lawmakers not sort of listen to that testimony and take it to heart. We do know that behind the scenes there are conversations happening, and at some level I think this is getting through, but we need to have those opportunities to be heard, to share our stories, and make sure that we are able to remove the discussion from just sort of the political atmosphere where it becomes an election issue to putting real faces and names to these stories and the very real life consequences of the legislation. Thank you all for being here. We appreciate it.
Thank you all.